end and start right here. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Sorry about my absence last week. It was Mother's Day, of course. And since me and my whole family were vaccinated, we were able to finally have a fun social gathering together. Um, Hope you all were able to say hello and spend some time with your moms, too. Okay. So, is there. Yeah, okay. It looks like it's good. I just wanted to make sure there was no like noise. If you notice any hiss or noise, your background hiss, let me know. Um, anyway, so what we're going to be doing today is just free sketching. Uh, Sketching like you might sketch in your sketchbook. No particular procedures or techniques, no trickiness or anything like that. It's just raw sketching with various pencils and pens, different digital tool brushes. I might even do a digital paint sketch. I just want to show you how I typically work when I'm alone and relaxed and just kind of doing it on my own. I don't always follow the 4-step, multi-step process that I showed in my Proco caricature course, where you do a thumbnail sketch, a rough sketch, the Riley abstraction, and then a final drawing on top of that. Those are great skills you should have that are part of your tool set. So when you're struggling, when you're new, or when you find yourself in a pinch, it's good to fall back on those fundamental, solid, multi-step techniques. But once you're a little bit more comfortable and experienced with caricature, you don't necessarily need to always do every step. Here today, I will do like a pre-sketch probably underneath my drawing, and then I'll maybe do a drawing on top of that, just maybe 1 or 2 levels of refinement. But I'm going to go pretty quickly. I got several celebrity sketches. I'm sorry, several celebrity photos to work from. Now, when I switch over to my workspace, my mic might disappear. I'll just make sure it's still there. Let's see. Testing. Can you still hear me? Yeah, it's still there. Okay. Let me know in the comments that you can hear me. But it looks like you should be able to. And Debbie, can we hear you too? Is Debbie around? Maybe she's not here. We have Debbie in the isolation booth, so I don't know when she shows up. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get started. Sorry about the technical goof up at the beginning. Thought I was past all that, but yeah, it was a Windows update. I blame Windows updates. All right, our first sketch today is celebrity John Travolta, current day John Travolta. All right, so let's just go ahead and start moving some ink around here. So what I'm thinking about when I'm doing this is just letting my pen just do the work, just keeping it moving, not thinking too much about it, just sort of like a stream of consciousness type drawing, just responding on a gut level to what I'm seeing without analyzing or overanalyzing it. So I might draw things in weird order, like maybe I'll draw the mouth first. And just, I like this scribbly technique where you just kind of keep the pen moving and don't get too scratchy with short strokes. It's important, I think, to keep the pen moving so that your mind is constantly moving. So right now I'm just using my one of my ink brushes. I think it's the Gonzo ink brush. It's the one that's sort of kind of a messy digital ink brush. But of course, I'll try to field questions too. So if you have any questions, comments, things that are on your mind, let us know. Hey,
Hello. Hopefully my mic is working.
looks like it. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't really look at the comments too much while I'm doing my intro monologue just because it's kind of distracting. I lose my train of thought. So uh, something I'll try to keep an eye on, though.
That's why I'm here.
The thing that kills me, though, is I did a test literally right beforehand, and it worked just fine. Don't know what happened. Thing about John Travolta's smile, he's got this, the corners just come up right at the end in a real extreme way, sort of like the Joker.
So, what ink brush are you using?
This is the Gonzo ink brush, I call it.
And that's one of yours?
Yeah, yeah. I call it that because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like, I was trying to do like a Ralph Steadman type ink brush line.
What does that have to do with Gonzo?
Gonzo was just kind of the style of artwork because he was, he was such closely associated with Hunter S. Thompson and the Gonzo journalist.
Oh, and I think Gonzo, I just think of the Muppet.
Well, I mean, it's a real word. It means like I don't know what, like weird or I don't know. I forget exactly the full definition, but
It's not in my lexicon.
okay. So this is just the pre-sketch. If I like it, I'll go ahead and like ink it properly. I'll do like a drawing on top of it. He's got this kind of nice fatty roll of flesh on his neck. And exaggerate that a little bit. Okay. Just modifying things on the go, things that I think look a little off balance. I'll try to fix before I do a proper drawing on top of it. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like it. I mean, it has potential. Not the best sketch ever, but it's kind of like my warm up. Let's see what happens if I ink on top of it, though. Let's lighten it up just a bit. So here's where I slow down a little bit and just try to make it into sort of a proper drawing, something a little bit more presentable. I'm thinking a little bit more about my line quality, about the cross hatching, if I do any or any kind of shading.
Cross hatching.
Hatching.
Sorry, I just know that you mention a lot of times you don't like to do cross hatching.
Yeah, I just use the term to just to generally describe it, regardless if I'm crossing or not. So I see really close together eyes for him and very, very small on his face. He's got bright blue eyes. He always has. So the irises or the indications of the pupils in there should be really, really tiny to show that there's very light colors to the eyes. Yeah, I like this pen because it has really good thin to thick line variation, very responsive.
So you're willing to take a question? I know you're
Yeah.
kind of still working out the sketch,
Oh no,
but
I'm down. Yeah, anytime.
okay. Herman asks, "Hey Court, are there any underrated artists you think don't get enough love? Doesn't have to be a caricature artist."
Hmm. I mean, that's kind of a tough question for me to answer because I have the artists that enjoy and I like, but I don't have my finger on the pulse of the art world or critics or the public, um, to see what other people like. Um, I mean, it used to be that the traditional artists were really frowned upon and thought of as just being very superficial, but that really started to change, I think, in the past 20, 30 years. People like, just Rockwell, Bouguereau, Sargent, the people that were doing that were very commercially successful were always looked down upon by the traditional art world in the 20th century for being like sellouts and not being true art because they didn't have a statement or because they were just trying to earn money, from the wealthy aristocratic classes. And so, I mean, I think that's over. I think like the people who are really, really good, like those people like Sargent, Zorn, Rockwell, kind of have had their day in the sun finally. They finally came back in favor, at least with artists. I mean, it's still all over the map what people like, but there finally, I think, are enough people that really recognize true greatness in art and the skill level that these people had. And not everything has to be like, you know, a passionate statement about the artist's pain and torment, for it to be real art. I went to a college, a university that really promoted that idea. And if you were into traditional art, you were kind of the black sheep there. um, it just was not, if you did anything like that, that was just surfacey and realistic and representational, you didn't get a good grade or you didn't get a good response from the students or the teachers just because it looked like you didn't put any thought into it. Like they really cared more about the monologue, the what was behind the motivations of your art, instead of the actual art itself. And that's the environment I sort of learned in. And I mean, I didn't fall for that. I mean, at that time, I was like, man, this sucks. And I kind of learned what I didn't like about the art world when I went there because I kind of knew what I liked. I just didn't know all the really good artists yet. I was more exposed to that when I went to the Watts Atelier years later, learning from the teachers and other students there, like all the really great artists that the art history world had kind of forgotten. Now, what about you, Debbie? Do you have any opinions on that?
Nope. I mean, artists, commercial artists.
Any artist, I guess.
I mean, I was just thinking about people like Rockwell and Muka. They pretty much are well known by a lot of people because they did commercial art. Like you said, I mean, they basically got paid to do what they do. So, yeah, some people see that as a sellout, but if you're not a quote sellout, unquote, then you're a quote starving artist, unquote. And to me, I want to get rid of that term. I hate that term, starving artist. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I blame Van Gogh for that, the mystique of the starving artist, because he was so not appreciated in his time. And if you like Van Gogh's work, that's great. I personally don't. Um,
Well, actually, I started to do some research on the term starving artist, and I think maybe one day I will do a podcast or a blog post or something about it because it's really kind of interesting how it happened.
ooh, cool.
But it's been around for over 100 years, unfortunately. We got to change that.
And of course, we got to do is chimple. There we go. You know what? His nasal labial fold doesn't go actually all the way down like it should. I suspect some surgical intervention is at play.
What? Nah. So I have another question for you.
Sure.
Bilbo Swaggins, love that name. How do you make sacrifices in your caricatures? I mean, how do you decide that you aren't going to exaggerate one thing when it would take up too much space to be able to exaggerate something else?
Now, when you say exaggerate, Bilbo, um, I think you mean just the making something bigger, because some people do like to end up, conflating those terms. That's, I mean, you got to be specific when you talk about exaggeration, because exaggeration is just a general term meaning to make something more of what it is. So
Well,
exaggeration can entail making something smaller or making something bigger.
he has a follow-up, if I
Oh,
can
okay.
interject.
Yeah.
For example, I would have run into an issue with Travolta because I would want to give him a big nose, but it doesn't seem like that would fit in your drawing here.
Yeah. So you have to sacrifice the size of certain things to make other things bigger. So I wanted to make sure his face looked really small, like on a large head. Like his face was kind of like his head is bloated. So certain things have to be smaller. The thing I decided to make bigger on his face obviously was his uh, mouth, his chin, not his chin, but his jaw and mouth area. So yeah, but yeah, there's you could definitely make a really good caricature of him with a larger nose too. Um, and I might want to do that as well. Just looking at it, that might be something when I analyze it, I'll be like, oh yeah, he could use the bigger nose. But this is just a sketch, just a pencil sketch or a sketchbook sketch. Um, so you're likely to find things like that you know, yeah, it's just it's an experimentation process. There's no right or wrong really. If it looks like the person, it's a success. You can get away with a small nose or a big nose. Um, but it's like what I really wanted to make sure I did is give him a long philtrum as well, because that's I think a distinct part of his likeness. And so if I made the nose any bigger, we couldn't have the long philtrum. So I'd have to like bring the eyes up or make just restart it basically, give him a larger taller head shape. So I'd have to reorder lots of things if I were to give him a bigger nose. And I could try it, and see what it looks like. Maybe the eyes could get a little higher up and smaller. Let's see what happens if I do that.
Well, it's all about comparison too. I mean, you could talk about exaggeration, but if you were to exaggerate the nose and also exaggerate the chin, then it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, because like it's very tempting to make lots of things big, and then if everything's equally big, then you just have a big portrait and not a caricature where everything's sort of brought up to scale in relation to each other. So everything's it's about relativity. Got to make sure things stay relatively different.
The caricature theory of relativity?
Sure, if you want to call it that. Okay, I'm just about done with this one, I think. Just pecking around on it here, just trying to make sure I like it, or if I don't, what I'll do is I'll probably look at them all at the end and figure out which ones I like the best and which ones I might want to develop a little bit further.
Luis is asking if you're going to do an abstraction on this one.
Nope, no, I'm not going to do any of that stuff today. I'm just doing free sketching here. Let's go ahead and I drew this guy pretty big. Let's draw. Let's shrink it down. Yeah, I think it's pretty rough. It's my first sketch, so start a new one here. Here we go. Dolly. Let's make her a little bigger. Okay, so same thing like the other one. I'm just going to do a quick under sketch, as quick as I can. Figure out how I want to redistribute the weight of the head. And of course, she got this great huge head of hair. Maybe it's a wig, I don't know, but
Of course, it's a wig. It's Dolly. She has no shame. She admits it. So I'm wondering, is anyone out there sketching along? Just curious, because I feel like I want to.
So I'm looking over a bunch of pictures of Dolly when I was searching for these. I noticed like the eye on the left, her right eye, our left, tends to be a little more closed than her right eye most of the time, like when she's smiling. I don't know if it's a natural thing or just maybe it's a result of, procedures she might have had done. But it's you want to pick up on stuff like that if you're, doing a caricature of someone. Look for those asymmetries that the casual observer might miss. You have to be a little bit more observant and um, think about those things. Like run through a checklist in your mind of, okay, so how's the weight on the head distributed? What's the most prominent thing about her that makes her look most unusual? What are her asymmetries? Is her mouth asymmetrical, or is one nostril higher than the other? That sort of thing. And that's not the most important thing about caricaturing someone is asymmetries, but it's one of those little things that if you get it, if you pick up on it, oftentimes too the subject, if you're drawing the person, if the person you're drawing is seeing it and reacting to it, like in a live situation or a situation where you're doing a commission, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, you got my uneven eyebrows. I didn't think anyone would notice that," and they think that's it's pretty special to them when you notice things like that, because they're real familiar with their own faces and they look in the mirror all the time, and when someone else picks up on those things, it's makes them feel special, unless they like really hate that thing about themselves, and then it bothers them that you did that. But that's pretty rare. Most people are pretty cool about the caricatures you draw of them. I've never tried drawing Dolly before. I'm surprised. I love her. She's so cool. Gives away a lot of her money to charities. We'll have to go to Dollywood one of these days, Debbie.
I would love to go to Dollywood. I want to meet her. She's like one of the people I would love to be in a room and just talk with. So I guess some people tuning in are surprised that you're doing these messy lines.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're just tuning in, I'm just doing sort of free, loose sketching today. Just letting my subconscious mind sort of direct the pen. And I do a tracing on top of it, a more refined looking sketch. But sometimes this is a really great way to work if you're, if you're comfortable enough with the process, I think. Or even if you're not, just give it a try. The thing that tends to suffer is structure, the anatomy, the perspective, and that sort of thing. You could definitely fix that, and I would if I were to take any of these to the next level. If I wanted to make any of them into a proper painting, I would definitely, do more proper tracings, do an abstraction tracing to realign everything, to sort of fix any drawing errors where things look unbalanced. But that's not what today's about. Today's just about just learning to be free. Her mouth is a little crooked. Her bottom lip, I think, is a little lower on the left side.
This is not her best wig.
I did like the angle, though. The angle of her face and her expression seemed very Dolly. So I really like this photo. Yeah, maybe more of a pointed chin. Just kind of rolling with it, just letting my sketch evolve as I get more of it on the page. But again, not too concerned about structure, symmetry, anatomy.
So how is your thought process different when you're just sketching like this versus how you do it like the planned way?
Well, I kind of do look at this as basically the thumbnail sketch phase. So I kind of my mind's in the same frame of mind as it is when I'm doing thumbnail sketches. That's basically the stage where you're just coming up with the idea for the exaggeration. The only difference here is I'm extending that process a little bit. I'm making it a little bit more, like I'm basically doing a more finished, refined thumbnail sketch. Just I'm not doing all the correction steps on top of it because I just want to get through a lot of faces today and sort of get the train moving and get some momentum. So I'm hoping my sketches by the end of the day will be even more sort of fun and exaggerated with better likenesses. I don't think the John Travolta was that great. Could maybe revisit it later if I'm feeling saucy.
Saucy. Which reminds me, what's for lunch?
Leftover pizza, probably.
Ugh.
I always like to do some of the head and the neck and shoulders to give it some context. I keep adding more hair. I keep on needing to shrink it down more and more. Cool. I spend so much time actually on this rough sketch. I don't know if I really even need to do a. Yeah, I should probably do a tracing of it just to clean it up a little bit. So let's dim down this layer. And this, I'll zoom back in a little bit.
So you are going to do the inking on a separate layer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Your rough sketch was so, or the thumbnail sketch was so messy that it's, I think, in our best interests that I do it on a different layer. And this can be an opportunity to add more exaggeration to it as well. If I think I can get away with pushing the cheek out a little further, I'll do that. Again, sort of unnaturally smoothed out laugh lines there. So I don't really need to connect the lines.
So, Court, what's your favorite Dolly song?
Hmm.
I bet I know.
9 to 5.
Ding, ding, ding.
I don't know. This is the first one I ever heard. I think that movie 9 to 5 was like one of the very first like adult movies I'd seen. Not adult in the weird way, but like not a kids movie. Went out to the theaters and saw it when it came out, and I thought it was like hilarious. Even though I didn't get a lot of the humor, I was probably 6 or 7 years old.
I would have to say Jolene for mine.
Got a little mole there. Can't forget the mole.
So Antonio is asking, what do you think about expressive brushwork like Richard Schmid? Have you tried it?
Yeah, I always strive for that. That's one of my goals is to be, to have simple but still expressive brush strokes in my paintings. It's a tricky thing. It's hard to do. Like when you're doing live alla prima painting, you're more likely to do those kind of cool, simple but effective brushstrokes because you just have limited time. And the more experienced you are at handling paint, the easier it is to sort of pull those off. But the more time you give yourself, like I know this is one of my problems, is I end up overworking brushstrokes, over blending, smoothing things out, losing the cool brush texture because the more you stare at something, you're like, I can fix that. That nose could look more like a nose if I soften the edges a bit. But then I'll look at someone like Sargent or Zorn or Schmid or someone, and they could do the side plane of a nose with just a single swipe of the bristle brush. But the truth is maybe a little more complicated than that. Like Sargent probably pulled the stroke on that nose 20 times before he got it right. He would just wipe it out each time. At least that's the stories I've heard. So that look is really hard to attain. You have to sort of just work at it to get that effortless, painterly look.
Hi, Shiny. She's asking if we have nice sunny weather today because it's raining and stormy where she
Hmm.
is.
Yeah, it's nice today. It's mild, but it is cloudy. I think we're
It
gonna have a
is
cloudy, cool day here in
very
San
cloudy and
Diego.
chilly for this time of year. But we wouldn't say that's a bad thing here.
Yeah, I like it. I hate the heat.
So, Court, have you ever heard of an artist called Bruno Hamzagig?
Mm, I don't know. I don't think so.
Neither have I. I'm actually Googling him right now. Bilbo was asking if you were familiar with the caricature artist's work. I guess this artist seems to capture every exaggeration using a cubism or surreal style.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, let's see if I can find some stuff for him. Let's see. Brady's asking, do you always use those lines for shading? I guess talking about the hatching you're doing.
It just depends. Depends on the tools I'm using and what I want to do with it. And oftentimes if it's like a preliminary study for a painting, I don't put too much effort into it, unless like I really feel like I need to do a value study where I want to resolve all the lights and darks and everything. But if I just want to do a cool sketch, just to have a sketch, as a work of art, then yeah, I'll often make things a little bit more, fleshed out, a little more figured out with cross hatching or hatching. I love the cross hatch look or the hatched ink mark, like the classic inkers, which I've mentioned on here a bunch of times, like Joseph Clement Cole, James Montgomery Flagg, Frank Frazetta, Booth. Did I say Booth? Franklin Booth. What's his name? Bernie Wrightson, amazing. But even like simpler inkers too, like Gris Grimley, who did the sort of gothy,
Ooh,
funny horror
I love
drawings.
Chris Grimley. Kind of a dark, almost Tim Burton-esque feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all inkers. I mean, ink is such a versatile medium, and this is what I'm trying to do here, sort of like an ink drawing. Um, but yeah, I love just the simplicity of it, how you can just say so much with so few lines, or a lot of lines, but just perfectly well placed. How you can direct the viewer's eye with the direction of the strokes. I mean, there's so much to inking. It's really, really a tough, challenging medium that I constantly go back to it because I love the look of it, and I love it when I can pull it off. When it looks interesting. It just has a lot of interest because you can see so much of the artist's hand and mind in an inking. You can see the exact thought process. With an oil painting, it sometimes gets covered up. The paint strokes can be blended, and you don't really see what the artist was thinking or how they achieved those effects. But the inking, it's all on the table. There's no hiding. Okay, I think I'm just about done here. Um, yeah, yeah, I like this one. I'm getting a little more comfortable with it, I think.
Her
Let me go
hair
ahead and
looks,
move on to my next subject.
sorry, her hair looks fun, is what I wanted to say. There's sharp edges and curved edges.
All right, so now we have actress Lupita Nyong'o. I'm saying that right. Love this pose too. Just a great angle, very challenging angle. We're sort of looking up at her. She's got this great badass expression on her face. Yeah, let's start with a rough sketch here. I think for her, a sort of a wider face with very rounded top and very flat bottom would work because like her jaw is sort of elevated and straightening out her jawline on the bottom. Yeah, so I'm going to try to capture this unique perspective and head angle without doing too many guidelines or perspective lines, just because I want my sketch to be, free and loose and spontaneous feeling. I don't want it to feel overworked or too planned out.
So your reference photo is just something you grabbed off the internet, right? And you've got it in another window in Photoshop?
Yeah, it's just open right next to it.
Okay, someone's asking what software you use for that.
Yeah, sometimes I do a tricksy thing with OBS where I have the image up on a separate screen so I can see it bigger, but I'm seeing it just as small as you are, guys, up in my left corner of the screen. I mean, that's okay because I'm just doing sketching today, just free sketching. I didn't want to get too involved in like details. I think having the reference photo like this kind of small does help me see the big picture a little bit better. The big shapes, the dominant shapes, what's most important about the likeness. I think I need some more room for her forehead. I made it too small. Pretty big eyes for the size of her face. Very high cheekbones, but very graceful curves to the face. I don't want to make things too straight and boxy. I still want to keep things very fluid looking. Cleaning up the sketch a little bit so I can see kind of what I'm doing here.
So Max is asking, do you have a preference on head direction when you're drawing? Like, is it easier for you if it's facing left or right?
Hmm. I
Usually
think I
depends,
might
right?
unconsciously prefer photos or heads that are turned to the left because I'm right-handed and I can sort of see my drawing better as I'm drawing it because I'm not covering it up with my right hand. If they're facing left. So yeah, this is one that's not like that. But yeah, I generally do prefer the three-quarter views for caricature because they give you the best opportunity to exaggerate the forms of the face in a way that you can sort of appreciate the quality of these forms and the shapes and how they interlock with one another and the different facial planes. And they're just more dynamic feeling than a straight-on sketch. I love profiles too. Those are actually the most I think you can have the most of fun with the shapes and pulling them in different directions with a profile view. But they're sort of overdone. That's how caricatures sort of started. And, the most popular way to do caricatures back in the day, 19th century and maybe before, was like you'd always see strong profile views of people. And to me, it's a little bit of a cop out because it's a lot easier to exaggerate someone's profile, and people are less. I don't know if they're less critical about the likeness, but like nobody can see themselves from a profile view. You just kind of have to trust that it's good, that it looks like you. If you're like say getting one done and you're getting one done by a profile sketch artist, um, because yeah, you can hide a little bit behind the fact that it's a side view. At least when you're working live, I guess I should specify. Hmm. Not quite sure I have it all figured out just yet. I like the direction it's going, but I don't think I've quite captured her just yet. Yeah, let me go ahead and I'll try to do a tracing of it anyway. Maybe it'll look a little better on the next stage. Not better, just more definitive. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it yet. And if I do ever have problems figuring out if I'm getting the likeness right or if it's just not working for whatever reason, I will try a different sketch technique. Like I might move over to uh, shape painting sketches where I don't do lines, where I just grab a big fat paintbrush and just start blocking in the shapes. Because sometimes I can find a likeness better doing that for some reason.
So Mike Jones is asking if you recommend any other programs for people on a budget besides Photoshop. Not sure which platform he's asking about. Because I
Yeah,
guess Photoshop really is more desktop at this point.
yeah. If you're on a desktop or a Mac, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about GIMP. I believe it's free software, a lot like Photoshop, and Krita, Krita, I think it is. Like it's just open source, I think free available to anyone. I'm not sure if that's the case or if they charge a little bit for it now, but I've heard a lot of people talk about that and they seem to like it.
Yeah, someone's saying just pirate Photoshop. I don't even think you can do that anymore.
I'm sure there's a way if you're savvy. Back in the day, it was a lot easier, to get a disc from somebody and a serial number. And I mean, I've heard, I don't know, of getting a bootleg copy of Photoshop. But yeah, I think with the subscription, it's a lot tougher now.
Yeah, and they pretty much know how many computers you log in from, so I wouldn't. I wouldn't recommend pirating software.
Nope. Because there are lots of great free options out there if you want, or really, really cheap. Like if you're on an iPad, of course, you got Procreate. It's what, $10, and that you're all in there. You bought it, you own it, so you never need to pay for it again. It's not like a subscription. So yeah, something like that, Procreate or any of the great other iPad apps if you're on iPad.
Yeah, Max mentioned Sketchbook Pro for the Mac, I guess is what we're looking at, what Mike's asking about. So yeah, I have Sketchbook Pro on my Mac. I don't think I really use it though. But I think they made it free, is what I've heard. But I'm not sure if that's the desktop version or the iPad version. I can never remember since I don't really use it. I think there's something from Affinity too. Does that sound right? Affinity.
I don't know.
I know they have some layout software where it's just one price and then you get to use it. It's not a subscription. See if I can find it. Yeah, Jesus mentions Clip Studio Paint, which is good, but I know at least on the iPad they switched to the subscription format. I think you get 6 months free, and then if you don't cancel, they start billing you, because I know I had it for a while.
Got great big sort of feather style earrings here.
Oh, here it is, Affinity Photo. It's a raster graphics editor developed by Serif for Mac OS, iOS, and Windows.
Yeah, if I want to make the, shade in the hair a little bit more, I might just make the brush bigger just so it goes a little bit faster. So it becomes more like an ink brush, which are a lot more expressive than ink pens. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I think it's an okay start, but yeah, I don't think I've quite captured her in this one, honestly. Needs some work. I need to see her more in movies too. I mean, I've seen her in a lot of movies, but she always looks very different. Like in the movie Us, where she played like two characters. She looked very different in those
Was she in
characters, even.
Star Wars?
Yeah, she was an alien, so she was all CG in that one.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, what else? I think she was in what do you call it? The Black Panther too, right?
Never seen it. Don't know.
She's one of those actors that can sort of lose herself in a role, become the person. Anyway, yeah, this one definitely needs a little bit more, maybe a revisit later on. All right, let's go to a different type entirely here. So Patrick Stewart. I haven't trying to draw him in a long time. So this will be interesting. Maybe I will go ahead and try a different sketch method than what I've been doing here, just to mix it up a little bit. I'll do the paint sketch method where I'm painting with shapes rather than with lines. First, I do want to just get a tone on the canvas. Is how I usually like to start a painting. Don't like to start on white. And just get a few sample colors or sample values here on the lower of the painting. Okay. I'm going to start this one a little differently. I'm going to go with the negative shapes first, like actually carve out the space around his head. I don't think I've ever really tried that. Let's see what happens. Okay. Then cut back into it a little bit more with positive shapes. I'm sort of picturing this being the nose here. And then I just start shading, basically, just starting adding the biggest shapes first, carving out the shapes of the head, in the various planes of the head. And this photo isn't necessarily the best to work from for this kind of technique, honestly, because there's not a lot of really strong shadows. So we'll see how it goes. It usually works best if you have a lot of strong shadows and halftones. And here I don't really. I just have, just the few hints of where the features are actually at. The slits for the eyes, slits for the eyebrows. As I said earlier, this is one of the sketching techniques I really do when I'm on my own. Do. Because it just, I don't know, I can just find the shapes a lot of the times faster than working with lines and pencil lines and ink lines.
That's because you think like a painter.
Yeah. It's just I'm thinking of the shapes in my head. I don't think of lines in my head, I guess.
Antonio says you're painting like a sculptor.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm starting with like it's kind of like a rough ball of clay is kind of how I look at it. And you start with this big misshapen mass and you whittle it down, keep on whittling and carving away, adding to it, taking away, adding to it, back and forth until you start to get something. Yeah, it is a lot like 2D sculpting. And I try to avoid going to too small of a brush too soon, but sometimes you do need to if you want to like start carving out features. It goes without saying that it really helps to have a really intuitive understanding of the planes of the features, the planes of the nose, the planes of the face. Um, Even if it's there in the photo reference for you, you kind of have to be a little intuitive about it as well to know when it's looking good and when something's not quite right, where the fat pads are, that sort of thing. You can see I'm just jumping all over the face too. I'm not sticking in any one area. I just kind of go where the pen is needed next. The next thing I see. I do a lot of bouncing around.
Max says bought Court brushes, and now I see the round quick painter brush. Is that one of your brushes, Court?
Yep.
Doesn't have a cool name like the other ones.
Yeah. It's just very descriptive about what it is. It's some of the other brushes are they have a lot of effects on them so that if you try to paint with a really large brush size at high resolution with some of them, they can have a lot of lag to them and be slowed down. So this is, I call it the round quick painter because you can size it up to really big sizes and it doesn't have so much going on that it's going to slow down your system too much. So it's often the first brush I go to, especially in a speed painting situation like this.
And looks like Shiny's decided to draw along.
Yeah, all right.
I am too, but I don't think I'm going to show my drawings.
Mhm.
Maybe. If anyone else wants to show their drawings, though, just tag Cord on Instagram.
That ear needs to come up a bit. Okay. So yeah, I think I see a decent likeness here. It's not fully resolved yet, but what I might like to try to do is now do a line drawing on top of this. I've never really quite done that. Well, I mean, I have done it in the past, I guess. If I do this as a as a preparation for a more finished painting, I'll eventually do a tracing of it. But I never really do a tracing of it at this early of a stage where I just sort of barely figured everything out. I want to see what happens here. And maybe this won't work. Maybe the painting will look better than this drawing that I'm attempting. We'll see. You ever seen young photos of Patrick Stewart, Debbie? Like when he's really young, like in the 60s and 70s?
Did he have hair then?
Yeah, he had hair. He was in this one
What?
like Gladiator movie. He looks
No.
just like when he was young, he looks just like Richard Gere. It's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
I just figured he was always bald. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
In fact, when I saw a movie with Richard Gere in it, like oh yeah, it was called the movie was actually called Mr. Jones, believe it or not. And there was a shot in it where he was like being restrained by police, I think, because he was like manic depressive and having an episode. And he looked just like Patrick Stewart because his hair was slicked back and his eyes. Like, wow, Richard Gere looks like Patrick Stewart. I remember thinking that at the time, now that I recall.
Hmm.
And a little bit of trivia, I was actually in the movie Mr. Jones. Technically, it was
What?
yeah, I was an extra when they filmed it in San Diego.
What?
Yeah, I was just in the audience of like some stage concert that comes and interrupts.
Wait, how come I never heard
You
this?
never heard this? I'm sure
I
I
don't
told you.
think so.
Yeah, you can't see me. Just like my spot in Anchorman 2, I was in the audience. You can't see me in the final movie.
Where's your IMDb profile?
Oh,
Oh,
I have
wait,
one, but
you
it's
do have
for
one.
my illustrations.
How come it's not? It should be on there.
Well,
Extra.
I don't think extras get credits on
Oh,
IMDb.
I've seen people put their extra credits in there.
I don't know, maybe. Well, I think you might have to pay for that privilege, and
Maybe. Maybe that's IMDb Pro.
yeah.
So Antonio's asking, what does simplification mean to you in painting? Nice sketch with values, by the way.
Thanks. Um, what does it mean in painting? What's the question again?
What does what does quote simplification unquote mean to you in painting?
Interesting question. Um, I think there are stages of the painting and even the finish of the painting where you quote unquote simplify things. Where if there's nature has a lot of messiness to it, like the curls in a hair or the way the shadow falls across the face might create some awkwardness if you were to paint it just as you saw it. So you tend to want to idealize and simplify the shapes. Um, Meaning you capture the character of what's there, but without being like a slave to it necessarily. So you modify it and redesign it in a way that's sort of pleasing to the eye. So if you want the shadow from the nose to fall on the cheek and form more of a perfect straight line, or to create a triangle of light on the far side of the cheek, and it's not quite doing that, you could simplify it so that it's more graphic, more like more like the statement you want to make in your head. But there are some people who are just photorealistic and just paint every single mole and wrinkle exactly as it appears, and that's great too. So it's not like it's the best way to work, but it is a way to work if you're trying to work fast and reinterpret something in your own style. Simplification is a part of that. And that's kind of how I look at it, is basically just redesigning nature to be a little bit more friendly to the eye when you're looking at it in a painting.
Another question for you. Good one, I believe. Not that they aren't all great, but I want to know what you say to this one too. If you create images for magazines, what photos do you use as reference? Do you need permission of the photographer?
I've never have. I think the way I use photos when I'm doing an illustration for somebody is I'm changing what I see so much because I'm a caricaturist specifically that it might even be almost impossible to tell what photo you got it from, and I think that's a pretty safe place to operate from. I sometimes combine a couple different reference photos where, like, I like the lighting on one and I like the angle on another one where it's slightly different, or the expression on a different photo. So I'll combine photos that way. But I mean, I think illustrators have been, commercial illustrators have been doing this for years and years. And if it was really a problem or an issue, we would hear more about it. You just get into problems more, I think, when you're doing something like, the case with Shepard Fairey and the picture of Obama. Was it Obama? That the
Yeah,
Hope?
the Hope
Yeah, I
one.
think the photographer who took that original photo had an issue with it because it wasn't transformative enough to, it would seem like to that photographer that Shepard Fairey was relying more on the quality of that photo rather than on his own artistic interpretation of it. I'm not sure exactly how. I can't remember how it turned out actually. Who was found to be, if he was found to be liable or whatnot. But yeah, you definitely have to be careful. But I think we do enough transformation as caricaturists that it's probably going to be fine.
Yeah, I think right now at this point in time, you're probably okay. But it all depends on if another court case comes along that wipes everything else out. So,
Yeah, I mean, you could just run afoul of some photographer who needs some money and wants some money, and if they, which is probably most people, don't mind getting money. Not like that's a bad thing, and people's work should be protected. But I think we're using it in a fair, legal way, in a way that's protected by the Constitution, in my humble opinion.
You have to be careful too, though. I think I've seen a lot of caricatures where it's very obvious people have used the exact same photo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just think it brings up issues. Especially when the caricatures look very, very similar. It's like, did they both work off the same photo or did one actually copy the other person's caricature? Is this the last person you're going to draw?
I think I have one more after this.
Because we got about 14 minutes.
Do like the way this is coming out. I'm pretty happy with it. In case you were wondering, anybody.
No. Just kidding.
Got a few little spots on his head. And freckles. Okay, yeah, I think I'll go ahead and move on. But yeah, I like the way this is coming out. It's a pretty decent Patrick Stewart, I think. He looks very impish. But yeah, definitely could use some work. I think it could use another layer of reinterpretation or modification. Ooh, I like that. I like how he changed his eye there. I think it really needed that to be a little bit more upturned at the lower bag of the eye. Yeah, that's definitely more Patrick Stewart-y. All right. Yeah, let's see what my last one is here. Oh, I do have a couple more photos, but I think I got Rob Lowe and I got Stephen Yun. I guess I'll do Stephen Yun. Rob Lowe's a great face, and I've been wanting to do that photo for a while, but I'm a fan of The Walking Dead, so let's make him just a little bit bigger. And you know what? I think I'm going to try that technique again where I did the paint sketching technique to start it off, and then I'll do a tracing or a line drawing of it after that. Cover up the white of the canvas because it's kind of hard when you're fighting that. Okay. So you see his face is pretty wide and short. Let's see, I'm gonna go a little lighter. My background color is almost the same, pretty much the same color as the flesh, the same value. Yeah, this face is too light. Let me I think I'll start with a lighter background actually, just so I can go a little bit darker on the face.
Is this the guy that people said was short round in the Indiana Jones
Well,
movies?
I think there were online jokes about it because, like, when he first appeared on the show, he had a baseball cap on, like a Yankees
Ah,
cap, like Short Round did. Yeah, it's definitely not the same actor.
I know it's not, but I do not watch The Walking Dead.
Should, it's awesome.
Mm.
There's only
I
10 seasons.
I feel like every time I tried watching it, for some reason I was always eating. And then there's someone like chewing on an arm.
Well, that's your first mistake. You can't,
Yeah,
eat while
well,
you're watching The Walking Dead.
well, it's on, when I usually eat. So.
He's in that new movie though that just won some Oscars, I think, didn't he? I can't remember if it how many or what it won, but it was up for Best Picture, I think. Minari, I think the name of the movie
Oh,
was.
Yeah, I've seen previews for it. I didn't realize he was in it.
So again, I kind of see him like similar to Travolta, how he has sort of small features like on a large face, his nose, mouth, eyes, just kind of just smaller in scale overall. So I want to have sort of a wide face around it is sort of what I see. Yeah, I would also say that this, like the Patrick Stewart photo, isn't awesome for this technique because the shadows on his face aren't super strong. It's always easier to paint this way when the shadows are a lot stronger. But it's definitely workable. It's not impossible. Just takes a little bit more subtlety, a little bit more of a subtle hand when you're choosing the colors and values. The values, I should say, not colors, because it's all grayscale. Just carving away like it's clay. I only just want to do just enough to get a decent line drawing too. So I'm not going to fully resolve this, the values on this. Just using this to find the shapes that I'm going to be tracing or outlining in a moment. All right. Maybe shrink this down just a tad so it's not so big on the screen. Okay, let's dim this down and do my tracing. Pretty happy with the likeness. I can actually see it, I think.
Like carving a pumpkin.
Yeah.
I mean, his head just reminds me of a pumpkin for some reason. And if anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll see if Court can get to them. Last chance. So is Walking Dead on tonight?
Fear the Walking Dead is on tonight,
Fear
the
the Walking
spinoff.
Dead. Okay. Is there one more season of the actual Walking Dead, right?
Yeah, they're yeah, I think they're in the. Did they just start the first half of the last season? I think I'm not quite sure, or if they're going to do one full season more. I don't know. I don't keep track of it as much as I used to. Just watch it.
So Bilbo Swaggin says that you should caricature Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah,
What was that actor's name again?
Ian Holm played him in the. Well, he played him in the Lord of the Rings, but in The Hobbit, it was played by Martin Freeman.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Comics Legend wants to know, High Court, will your caricature class also be a part of Proco 2.0?
Yeah, yeah. That's It'll just everything's just moving over to the new site. In case you guys aren't aware, Stan Prokopenko is basically coming up with a whole new version of his website that's going to have all sorts of like social media functionality where there's like private forums and things. Um, I mean, I'm not the best person pitch man for it because I don't know everything myself. I'm kind of finding out like the rest of you. But yeah, all the courses will be there. You'll have be able to set up a profile that has what your classes are, what your progress is. I think where you can post, you can definitely post your own images there for feedback from other people, but you can, I think, keep better track of your progress than maybe you were able to on Facebook, because we have the Facebook groups right now is the only social media aspect to the Proco experience besides what's on YouTube. So yeah, that's going to launch, I think, this next week. And you don't really have to do anything, is just go to the Proco site and it'll just be that now. You don't have to type in like 2.0 or anything. It's not launched yet, but it will, I think, later this week. And then Stan's going to have things happening all month long, like videos, special features, special bonus stuff for people. Maybe even watch for something from me, perhaps. But yeah, it's going to be like a month long celebration to launch the new site.
Also, Aiden saying, and I think he might have said this earlier, that you should caricature Bob Dylan. Have you ever drawn Bob Dylan
Oh,
before?
no, I don't think I have.
I think I've drawn Bob Dylan before.
Well, you should show us your Bob Dylan
Well,
picture.
I think it was one of the first caricatures I ever did, so there's no way I'm showing it.
Okay, just about finished. Here's wrapping up last drawing. I think this was a good exercise. I mean, it shows you how, like, I like sharing my struggles with you guys sometimes, where I Well, I mean, I don't love it. I like to think, I like everyone to think I'm perfect, but of course I'm not. A lot of my sketches need a lot of love and attention. Uh, magic doesn't just happen right out of the gate. A lot of work sometimes. Sometimes I draw things 30 times before I feel like I've gotten a good likeness. That's why I like to develop different strategies over the years, different ways of sketching and drawing to help me find things faster, to find the right exaggeration. Okay, you know what? I could actually turn the lower layer on just because it kind of acts like shading now for the drawing. Yeah, it's a little dark overall, but yeah. So this was pretty fun, I think. Pretty decent exercise. Yeah, sorry about the sound problems at the beginning. I always hate when that happens. I thought I was past all those technical issues. For the most part, I have been. It's been pretty good. But yeah, the stupid Windows update messed up my microphone. I had to re-add everything audio wise.
Computers keep you on your toes.
Yeah. And let's see. Let's get all the pictures on the screen here. I just don't need the. Let's just get the line drawings. There you go. This one.
I think you could kind of tell which ones you started off with because I feel like you can see the warm up process, which is cool.
Yeah, I think Dolly's my favorite of the bunch.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I like her caricature the best. Which one do you like best, Debbie?
I don't know. I have to see them all. I've
Which
got
one
a
do you hate the
lag.
least? At this small size, the John Travolta one isn't actually too bad. I can tell it's him, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's really funky the way it's drawn. It's a little yeah, the structure's weird. Patrick Stewart, I think, is a good likeness. Stephen
Yeah,
Young's a good likeness. Dolly Parton, I think, are probably my three favorites. So I don't know. Hope it was helpful, guys. If you have any questions about it later on, feel free to add them in the comments afterwards. And I don't know. Hope you got a lot out of it. Thanks, Debbie, for helping out again as usual
you're
and fielding
welcome.
the questions and adding your support. Yeah. So that's it. Say bye.